like it is harder than we expect, but also the rewards may be also greater than we expect.
James Clear has this fucking unbelievable insight. It doesn't make sense to continue wanting something if you're not willing to do what it takes to get it. If you don't want to live the lifestyle, then release yourself from the desire. To crave the result, but not the process, is to guarantee disappointment. Fuck.
Yeah.
Holy fuck.
Super true. I mean, I think Naval quoted this blog a long time ago, but desire is a contract you make with yourself to be unhappy until you get what you want. And if you basically know that you're never willing to put the work in to get the thing.
Yep. That's an iron law. Like that James Clear thing is an absolute iron law. If you don't want to live the lifestyle, then release yourself from the desire. There is a path between where you are and the place that you want to be.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not prepared to do that walk, still wanting to reach the end of the path is just guaranteeing that you're going to live an unsatisfactory life.
And so when I hear that quote, I immediately go to my operational side of like, okay, how do I release myself from a desire? And so I thought about that. And I actually think it's a lot like dating. So hear me out on this. So there is the old saying, I think it's a girl saying, I'm going to assume it's a girl saying, which is if you want to get over somebody, get under somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Now, there's a point to this, which is I don't think you can release desire, but you can replace it. And so it's like if you have a terrible breakup, there's basically some totem of reinforcement that's been removed from your life. Getting over something or someone is simply getting enough exposure to enough new things from the time that you've bought back from this reinforcer being gone to find another reinforcer, which is why I genuinely think that the idea of like, oh, I shouldn't date for a while after I get out of a breakup is just complete stupidity. Like, why would you, like, why? What rule is there? Well, you have to heal. Healing for most people is defined as I find something else that brings me sufficient joy that my baseline returns to normal. But if I'm going to bring somebody else into my life, that person's also going to serve that same function. And so like I can replace it with tennis or gardening or business or just the next person I'm going to date. And why is one better than the other? To Clear's releasing of desire, I think it's just choose to want something else. So if I were to give someone the direction, release the desire, I would say, don't try and release the desire. Try and justify or reason why wanting something different is better.
Well, also, maybe be a little bit more open-minded about how that desire could be fulfilled. It's like, and to push back on the why you should have a little bit of a break between partners, I would say that there is a specific type of learning that comes especially from intense and emotional experiences that takes a little bit of time for you to imbibe. And that if you very quickly move into a new relationship, you're trying to find the direction that you're going in while you're also rowing the fucking boat and trying to fix the holes from the last one. I get the sense that there are certain realizations that come about by, we're often very bad at taking lessons from a thing while it's still happening. And I wonder whether you very quickly move into the I can't take lessons from this thing mode because I'm focused on the new thing, as opposed to let's sit down and debrief a little bit after this. And what does life look like? Perfect example of this. Alain de Botton has a beautiful insight where he says, people rarely change, often not in relationships, and never when you ask them to. It seems that most people's changes in the way that they show up in relationships occur between them. Now, I would guess that a lot of this is because change is very emotionally painful and breakups are emotionally painful. Therefore, people change when they break up. It's like, my world got ripped out from underneath me.
Mm-hmm.
But I do wonder whether moving on very quickly stops the reflective process that allows sense-making to occur by immediately giving you new novel stimulus that is distracting.
So I will challenge back, which is one, it assumes that we must change.
Mm-hmm.
If we take that frame, which I wouldn't necessarily accept in all cases. Number two, it assumes that the change that we're going to make in between is something that's going to increase the likelihood that we find someone that we like, which may or may not occur. Third, I do think that change would happen no matter what. because you've removed somebody who was altering your behavior. And anyone who says that the person they date doesn't alter their behavior, like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, of course, they give you little kisses when you do stuff and they say thank you. Of course, you have reward cycles and punishment cycles that exist constantly. And so like, oh, she's always different when she's in a relationship. It's because they have somebody else who's deliberately changing their behavior, and that's normal. And we do control and counter control to our partners all the time. People don't like using the word control, but it's exactly what you do. If you want your husband to pick up the socks, then you say thanks, and you give him a blowjob afterwards, whatever. Like, you do some sort of rewarding contingency in order to, get more of the type of behavior you like. And also you say, hey, don't say that when they say something that they said, hey, are you going to finish your dinner? And you're like, I used to have an eating disorder, and my friends used to say I wasn't eating my food, blah, 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 right? And so with the relationship piece, I think that you're going to change when you have reward or punishment stimulus that changes. And until those things change, nothing is going to change, to Alain de Botton, Alain's name, him. And so if you get out of a relationship, you will change regardless because the conditions have changed. And so your behavior will change. And so, and all of these things, I then posit as the question is like, and do I need to do this in order to find the person that I want?
How many people have gotten into relationships where they've changed the things that they like to do? They've started staying up late because their partner stays up late. They've started getting up early because their partner gets up early. Let's say just that, because it's kind of simple. And then they get out of this relationship and they ask themselves the question, still going to bed late or waking up early, right? Because they've habituated that type of behavior.
Right.
They ask themselves, well, I kind of forgot that I used to go to bed early or sleep in. I forgot that bit of me. Because for the last 12 months, I've been in this relationship with this person and I adapted. We sort of met in the middle, or maybe they really changed me or whatever it is. Well, is that the way that I want to be? Is that the actual change that I want to make? Or do I want to go back or do I want to alchemize both of these things together and create this new world? I'm not convinced. In theory, maybe. In practice, no. And in practice, for most people, certainly no. It takes time for this stuff to filter through. Yes, particular landmark events that you go through that are very traumatic.
I don't even think it's landmark. I think you can change behavior really quickly and it's just not a huge thing. Like Layla used to say in the very beginning of our relationship, she said, you're stupid. She would make that joke. And I'd say, hey, I don't really like that. And then she stopped. Yep. It's just a very small thing. It wasn't like this traumatic thing. It's a preference of mine if you don't say that. And she said, okay. And then that was it. With regards to the staying up late thing, the contingency of reinforcement, that was the other partner who was there, is gone. So now the reason that they were doing it before was that they didn't have this reinforcer. The reinforcer is introduced, so they're willing to change their behavior to accommodate this later, timeline.
We don't have transparency with ourselves, though.
I don't know what that means.
We do not see all of the reasons for our behavior and where they came from immediately.
Do we ever?
Rarely. But we will get more with distance, I think. To go, I'm no longer receiving this stimulus. It's like I tried to run on Jupiter. Jupiter was really heavy. I adapted my running style. I'm back on Earth. This is going to take a little bit of time for me to get back into this new running style.
So the reason, I will continue to die on this because I feel, I like, what I'm describing has been the central worldview that has been responsible for a great deal of my material success. And it's
rapid behavior change,
but also being able to accurately view the world. At least to I think I view it more clearly than I did before. And my decision quality has dramatically increased by isolating variables that are dependent, that actually change behavior, change outcome. And so when you said knowing why, it's like a bingo red flag for me. Not red flag, but just like a, pay attention thing. Because when we say, I figured out why, in my opinion, for the vast majority of people, when they figured out why, it means that I have crafted a narrative that I accept, which may or may not have any bearing on reality. And so I focus purely on the observable because they are far more predictable in terms of predicting your own behavior and predicting other people's behavior. And so with regard to the relationship, it's like people have many counter controls that they do. And so because of that, you change your behavior. And then all of those things are removed at once. Now, were there other things that are also variables in your life that occurred during that period of time? Of course. Do we know them all? No. And so I take the position that there are so many variables. Why do I need to know why? And I never will anyways. And so why would I waste my time trying to figure out do you think you're this way because your father didn't hug you enough? I don't know. I know that I am this way, period. And it might be 20 different things, because we're going to generalize work ethic to your dad didn't hug you enough, when it might be like, I write because I've had enough reinforcing contingencies around writing that I write. And that's different than when I'm willing to speak, which is different than when I do podcasts, which is different than all these others. And so when we get into basically we extrapolate out, reasoning by analogy works really well. When we get really down to what are the behaviors that change when you were in the relationship versus not in the relationship, and if you can get isolating on that, which you can be specific about, not necessarily why it happened, but that it changed and what behaviors changed, then you can look at your laundry list of, okay, these are the changes in my behavior that I have continued to keep post-relationship. Are any of these conducive to me getting a more attractive or better partner in the future? Now, if the person that I was with got me to go to the gym because they went to the gym, and then the gym itself became reinforcing, because basically totems of reinforcement can shift over time in terms of the work itself can be reinforcing. I might say, this was a laundry list. This is one of the items that changed when I was in this relationship, and I am okay with it. And so if we have that laundry list, then again, why do I need time? And so I push back on this very hard, because me discovering why I did something gives me zero value.
That's interesting. I would class myself as a understanding why, especially around myself, is one of the greatest sources of pleasure that I've got in my life.
Okay.
And this may be where me and you differ.
Oh no, we're gonna fucking jam on this. I love this. Okay. So I will give you, I think, a perfect analogy for this. And the reason that I'm, in general, somebody who's not the biggest fan of therapy, as is traditionally practiced. If I were playing tennis, right, and I went to a coach, and they said, hey, I need you to change your grip from this to this, straightforward. Would I spend the vast majority of that session with the coach being like, let's try to discover why you hold the grip that way? Who fucking cares?
I do.
Now, when we get to why, I used the word control before. If we can understand the dependent variables, then it means basically if you can predict, it means you can control, which people don't like that. But if you can predict what's going to happen, it means that you know what the variables are and you can influence those variables, which means you can influence the outcome, which means you can control the system. And so knowing why, from a narrative perspective, I think, again, you'll never know why. You will have a narrative that you've accepted.
Mm-hmm.
And so what? Because then what do I want to do next? I only want to, we have a set of behaviors or skills that will increase the likelihood of goal achievement, whatever that goal is, being spiritual, being a good husband, whatever it is. These behaviors will do that. To increase the likelihood of me doing these behaviors, then I have to have more good stuff, less bad stuff. I will down that hill. Beyond that, what does anything that happened prior to this matter at all, insofar as it only works if I can use that same variable and then use it again to change my behavior yet again to be conducive to the goal.
What if?
I love this shit.
Yeah, I can tell. I can tell. It's either the nicotine or the debate. So what if the actual outcome that you wanted was the pursuit of trying to work out why? Because for me, and tried to word that relatively carefully,
Sure.
not finding out the actual why, but the pursuit of trying to work out why. It's the reason that I fell in love with evolutionary psychology, because to me, it started to explain why we are the way we are. It's one of the common themes in this podcast, over 900 and something episodes. It is a place for people to come to try and get some approximation of why they are the way they are. And even if that's wrong, even if it does not fully explain, partly explain, the process of that discovery for me is fascinating. I have a journal entry from a long time ago when I was on mushrooms, and it was post party or post whatever, and I was back at the house and I had some music on and I was just thinking through ideas like this, and I could feel this game of tennis occurring in my mind as I thought a thing, and then I asked why, 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 and it felt like this sort of movement almost probably certainly was default mode off, and hemispheres talking and all the rest of it. And I wrote down not what I was thinking about, but I wrote down the sentence, I love the way that my mind works, because I like that conversation of tighter and tighter spirals of sort of deeper and deeper questions. And for me, I enjoy the why